Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV, and today we're going to be looking at creating a descending into chaos kind of effect with the FabFilter's Saturn 2. So let's really quick jump into it. So I've got here two effect types we're going to be using primarily that will be responsible for the effect, but they're hard to really tell what they're doing when everything's going at once. So we're going to look at this quick example. I've got a saw wave, and right now I'm on the type breakdown. If you come in and go to effects, there's one called breakdown. And when I push a note and use breakdown, we get this tuning downwards effect. It repitches things for us. So that's the first type, and that's what that does. And the next type is called smudge. So that's smudge. If we put now, smudge is going to be more important as sounds are changing. So let me play some notes while it's going. So it smudges things. It like just sort of smears them all over the place, and that's the effect that smudge gives us. So let's go ahead and grab in context now what we're going to be working with. All right, so here's the patch, and here's the idea, right? So we've got these loops here that are going. And the FabFilter is going to turn on first. So for this first bit, it's totally clean. It turns on. And then we take the smudge and the breakdown effects, and these are on separate bands, and we're going to move those up and down and all around. Now, the way they're turning on and off is according to these modulation sources, which we'll get to in a second. Because if you just leave them straight on, they tend to just be overbearing on the sound, which actually in this case could be a really good thing. But I still wanted it to be somewhat intelligible. So it comes down and it begins to break down like crazy. Then a kick drum comes in. I take the elements out and then we switch to a new pattern. So this could be a really cool transition effect. A lot of tracks end with effects like these. And so I'm going to show you just how to set this up. So let's give this a quick listen now that you sort of know everything that's going to be going on. That's what we have here. So there's a ton going on. The loops themselves are pretty complicated. I'm using this stutter effect already that moves between all these different loops. This is a really crazy instrument. And so when we get here, it's sort of like everything's just become this smeary mess. And then the kick drum comes in, gives us a bit more stability, and we move forward. Very sort of industrial sounding. So let's dive into exactly how the patch works. So we've got three bands here. We've got a low band, a mid band, and a high band. And let me just play for you them individually. I've muted the drive automation. So these automations will not be moving around. They're going to be set at 0. So these bands will be left untouched. And this low band, all it has on it is a heavy saturation. So when this turns on, I want to like distort the low end in a pretty aggressive way. So I chose heavy saturation, and let me go ahead and solo it. It sounds like this. If we really push it. So this is what I just chose to do with the low end. I thought it fit what I was doing here. Pretty nice effect for sort of this crazy industrial pounding kind of going on. So that's all that's going on with there. Well, up next we have the mid band. The mid band's using breakdown. So breakdown's going to have that tuning down effect. I chose to do this with the mid range just after some experiments. I thought it sounded really cool. So with this, there is a this blue guy is hooked up to the drive. You can tell because there's a blue dot next to it, so that's how you know. And what this is this is an envelope generator. And the envelope generator will generate an envelope whenever it hits a trigger. So when this threshold is passed, this envelope is created. And so I want to have this on, but the pitching down effect's a really, really overbearing effect. So what I chose to do was to set a threshold according to my audio and set the attack to be really long. So the drive will turn on and will pitch things down slowly, but it's somewhat dependent on the audio. Well, it's totally dependent on the audio on how much this happens. And then I use automation to sort of force it to activate all the way at some point so that we do get the full brunt of just everything being pitched down and smeared left and right and all that stuff. So that's what's going on here. So just a very long attack. So you can see things are just like turning up. There's some pitching down, but there's not all the way. And it's in a way that I think sounds really cool. If we come on and turn on the automations. It gets crazier and crazier and crazier as we go because we're forcing the drive up. That's the whole point of the envelope generator on this band. Coming up next, we have the high band. So the high band has this envelope follower on it. And this envelope follower is on the transient mode. So there's two modes. There's the transient mode and the envelope mode. You click down here to see them. And it's doing a similar job to the envelope generator, only this time it's following the general shape of the sound. So this is going to be more sensitive to whenever sharp strikes happen in the sound, something that's very transient. So I set it to be really, really short, and that's pretty much all that happened here. And I hooked this up to the drive. So that's the drive. Now you see it's pulsing. That's because there's an LFO here. So it by itself sounded cool, but I thought it would be cooler to use it to add a rhythm into the sound, like some pulsing or something going on. So what I did was I added an LFO. If you take the glide down, you can get a square wave, and I set it to 16th. By default, I believe it's on free. And in order to link it to the envelope follower, all you got to do is click this blue band and drag it to the envelope follower, and then you can actually modulate this directly. So now this source, this LFO, is modulating the drive. In fact, we could even link it to itself, and now it's modulating itself, and you can get really, really crazy with this. But I just wanted a pulsing effect on the drive, and so an LFO is a great way to do that. And if we come over here, so this is smudge. So this takes the high end, and instead of pitching it all over the place like we did with the mid band, this is just going to smear it out. So the high end stays high. It doesn't move around. Which if you want to, you could probably switch these and remove some high end, and that could sound like you're going down or you're going behind something because you lose some of the high end, and that could just be included in your distortion, which would be a cool alternative to the way I chose to do things here. So let's go ahead and solo this and hear this. And keep in mind that there's a automation clip turning this on over time. So I'm going to sort of force it on at the end. So you can hear how that works right there. I really like how this works. It sounds so cool. It adds like these waves of sound during the breakdown that sounds sweeping, but then when you bring it back, it turns back into this like really snappy thing with like little glitchy moments and moments that like sound like they should be there, because since it's the high end and there's like a lot of hi-hats and that kind of stuff going on up there, there's little clicks and pops, those things naturally tend to want to glitch around where the transients are anyways. So that is the setup with those, and that's the patch. That's all of it. So if you want to set something else like this up, you can. You understand the ideas behind it now. So if you want to set up a patch like this, maybe change a few things around, maybe add an extra band and add another breakdown and move that independently. The first one, you could do some interesting things there. Another interesting idea would be to take, like 12 bands, or I forgot what the maximum is, but you could add a bunch of bands and experiment with different versions of just these two. You can create so many interesting effect chains just with these ideas. And you could even add different pulses so that different areas of the spectrum pulse at different rates, maybe eighth notes and quarter notes. So you can have like these moments where they all line up and where only one or two of them is highlighted. Like you just have a lot of options here when it comes to effects, thanks to the modulation sections that they've updated with Saturn 2. So it's a lot more straightforward working with them now. And yeah, that's that. If you have any questions about this, feel free to let me know. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos. And have a blessed day.